The autumn rain fell softly on the church windows as I sat in the front pew, my young son Tommy pressed against my side. My mother's mahogany casket was surrounded by white lilies, her favorite flowers, though I'd always suspected she only claimed to love them because they were the most expensive at the florist's. I should have been crying. That's what everyone expected. My Aunt Patricia had already shot me 3 disapproving looks, probably adding my dry eyes to her mental list of my failures as a daughter. But all I felt was numbness, mixed with a strange sense of relief that made me feel guilty even thinking it. Mrs. Harrison, the funeral director, touched my shoulder gently. It's time for the final viewing. I nodded, standing on shaky legs. Tommy's small hand slipped into mine, his grip surprisingly strong for an 8-year-old. He'd been unusually quiet all morning, but I attributed it to the somber atmosphere and his first experience with death. "Mommy," he whispered as the line of mourners began filing past the casket. "I need to tell you something important." "Not now, sweetheart," I murmured, guiding him toward the casket. "We need to say goodbye to Grandma." "But Mommy." "Tommy, please." My voice came out sharper than intended, making him flinch. I immediately regretted it, but the weight of the day, the judgmental stares, and a lifetime of complicated emotions toward the woman in the casket were wearing me thin. We joined the procession. My mother looked peaceful, almost kind in death, an expression I'd rarely seen in life. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her favorite pearl necklace gleaming against her blue dress. Everything exactly as she would have wanted it. Even dead, Margaret Wilson had managed to orchestrate every detail. Back in our pew, Tommy fidgeted beside me throughout the service. I barely heard the pastor's words about my mother's dedication to family and generous spirit. 20 years of memories flickered through my mind instead. Mother's cruel comments about my weight as a teenager, her disapproval of every decision I ever made, her constant reminders that my father left because I wasn't good enough. And now, the pastor's voice cut through my thoughts. Margaret's sister Patricia would like to say a few words. My aunt approached the podium, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Margaret was more than my sister. She was my best friend, my confidant. She carried such burdens, raised her daughter alone after that terrible abandonment. I felt the familiar twist in my stomach at the mention of my father. 20 years, and they still painted him as the villain who walked out on his family without a word. Mother had built her whole identity around being the abandoned wife, the strong single mother. She'd received decades of sympathy, casseroles, and admiration for her resilience. "Mommy," Tommy tugged my sleeve again, more urgently. "Please, it's about Grandma," she gave me. "Tommy, shh," I whispered, noting the glares from nearby relatives. The reception afterward was held in the church basement, the same basement where I'd attended Sunday school, youth group, and 1,000 potluck dinners under Mother's watchful eye. Now it was filled with mourners eating triangle sandwiches and sharing their favorite Margaret Wilson stories, each one feeling like a scene from a different woman's life than the mother I knew. "Diana." Aunt Patricia cornered me by the coffee urn. "Your mother would be disappointed by your behavior today." Not a single tear. "After everything she did for you?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Tommy suddenly burst between us. "Mommy, you have to see this now." He was practically jumping with urgency. "Thomas Wilson," Patricia scolded. "Where are your manners? Your grandmother taught you better than." "Here." Tommy thrust an envelope into my hands. The paper was creamy white, expensive, Mother's preferred stationery. My name was written on the front in her perfect penmanship. "What's this?" I turned the envelope over. It was sealed with Mother's distinctive wax seal, a pretentious touch she'd adopted in recent years. "Grandma gave it to me last week," Tommy explained breathlessly. "When you took me to visit, she made me promise not to tell anyone or give it to you until after the funeral. She said it was super important." Patricia leaned forward, curiosity overcoming disapproval. "Well, open it, Diana." My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in Mother's elegant handwriting. The first line made my blood run cold. "My dearest Diana, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and it's finally time for you to know the truth about your father." The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the linoleum floor. Hot liquid splashed my black heels, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on the letter, racing through the words that would change everything. 20 years ago, I did something unforgivable. Your father didn't abandon us. I drove him away, and then I lied. To you, to everyone. The truth is, Deanna? Patricia's voice seemed to come from far away. What is it? What does it say? But I couldn't speak. The ring was spinning as 2 decades of carefully constructed reality crumpled around me. In my mind, I saw my father's face the last time I'd seen him, the sadness in his eyes that I'd never understood until now. I heard Mother's voice all those years, feeding me lies that shaped my entire life. Mommy? Tommy's small hand found mine again. Are you okay? Grandma said the letter might make you sad, but that you needed to know. I looked down at my son's worried face, seeing for the first time how much he resembled my father. The same concerned furrow between his brows, the same gentle eyes. My mother had known she was dying. She'd chosen my innocent 8-year-old as her messenger, ensuring I couldn't escape the truth even after her death. Diana, you're white as a sheet. Patricia reached for the letter. Let me see. I pulled it away, folding it quickly and tucking it into my purse. I need some air, I managed to say. Tommy, come with me. As we hurried toward the church doors, I heard the whispers start behind us. Let them talk. They'd been believing Mother's lies for 20 years. What was one more day of gossip? Outside, the rain had stopped. Tommy and I sat on the church steps, the wet stones soaking through my dress. I pulled out the letter again, my hand steadier now. Did you read it? I asked Tommy. He shook his head. Grandma said it was only for you, but she cried when she gave it to me. Mommy, I've never seen Grandma cry before. Neither had I. In all my life, I'd never seen Margaret Wilson show that kind of genuine emotion. What kind of guilt had she carried all these years? What kind of woman orchestrates her final revenge, or was it redemption, through her grandson? I took a deep breath and began to read the letter properly, my son's warm presence beside me anchoring me as my world tilted on its axis. The truth about my father was finally in my hands, and nothing would ever be the same. The letter trembled in my hands as I read my mother's final confession. Tommy leaned against me, providing silent comfort as 20 years of lies unraveled in elegant cursive. Your father was a good man, Diana. Better than I deserved. The story I told everyone about him abandoning us was my greatest sin. The truth is, I forged documents showing I was having an affair. I planted evidence, created fake photos, and made sure he found them. I drove him away because I discovered he was planning to divorce me and seek custody of you. You see, he found proof of my embezzlement from the family business. I had been stealing money for years to maintain our lifestyle, and he was going to expose everything. I couldn't lose my reputation, my social standing. So I destroyed him first. I made him believe I was unfaithful, knowing his pride would make him leave. Then I played the abandoned wife, gaining everyone's sympathy and ensuring no one would believe him if he ever tried to tell the truth. He's been living in Seattle all these years. I've kept tabs on him, making sure he stayed away. Every time he tried to contact you, I intercepted the letters, the calls, the emails. There's a box in my bedroom closet behind the hat boxes. Inside, you'll find everything I kept from you, 20 years of your father trying to reach his daughter. Mommy? Tommy's voice pulled me from the letter. Why are you crying? I touched my cheek, surprised to find it wet. All those years of therapy, trying to understand why I wasn't enough to make my father stay. All the relationships I'd sabotaged, fearful of abandonment. My entire adult life had been shaped by my mother's calculated destruction of my relationship with my father. Let's go, I said suddenly, standing up. Go where? Tommy scrambled to his feet. To Grandma's house. There's something we need to find. We drove in silence, leaving behind the whispers and judgment at the church. Mother's house stood exactly as it always had. Imposing, perfect, cold. My key still worked in the lock, though I hadn't used it in months. The familiar scent of lavender and furniture polish hit me as we entered. Everything was immaculate, not a speck of dust suggested the owner had passed away. Mother's presence lingered in every carefully arranged flower vase and perfectly aligned cushion. I took the stairs 2 at a time, Tommy's footsteps echoing behind me. Mother's bedroom was a shrine to her expensive tastes, heavy silk curtains, antique furniture, and a closet bigger than my first apartment. The hat boxes were stacked precisely, labeled by year and occasion. Behind them, just as the letter promised, sat a plain cardboard box. My hands shook as I pulled it out. What's in it? Tommy peered over my shoulder as I opened the lid. Letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to me in unfamiliar handwriting. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, graduation congratulations. Each one stamped "Return to Sender" in my mother's handwriting. Photos of a man who looked like an older version of my childhood memories, sometimes alone, sometimes with what appeared to be his new family. "Is that my other grandpa?" Tommy asked, pointing to a recent photo. "Yes," I whispered, my throat tight. "My father. Your grandfather." A small envelope fell from between the letters. Inside was a business card for James Anderson, senior partner at a law firm in Seattle, with a handwritten note on the back. "Deanna, I'm still here when you're ready. Love, Dad." The card was dated just 3 months ago. She knew she was dying, I realized aloud. She knew she had to tell me the truth, but she couldn't face me herself. "So she used you, Tommy, and this letter." "Are you mad at Grandma?" Tommy asked quietly. I looked at my son, so innocent and honest. I don't know what I am, sweetheart. Sad, angry, confused. "Are you going to call him your dad?" Before I could answer, voices drifted up from downstairs. Aunt Patricia's distinctive tone carried through the house. "Diana, where are you? Everyone's wondering where you disappeared to." "Quick," I whispered to Tommy, shoving the box back behind the hat boxes. I pocketed the business card and grabbed a random hat box as cover. Patricia appeared in the doorway just as I straightened up. "What are you doing in here? The reception isn't over." "Just getting Mom's favorite hat." I held up the box. "For the memorial photo table." She narrowed her eyes. "Your mother would be horrified to see you going through her things so soon. Have you no respect?" 24 hours ago, that comment would have sent me spiraling into guilt and self-doubt. Now, knowing what I knew, I felt something shift inside me. "Actually, Patricia, I think we need to talk about respect and truth. And what kind of person spends 20 years systematically destroying her daughter's life to protect her own reputation?" Patricia's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "Ask your sister," I said, taking Tommy's hand. "Oh wait, you can't. She's dead. But don't worry, she left quite a detailed confession." I walked past her, head held high for the first time in years. Tommy squeezed my hand. "Does this mean we're going to Seattle?" he whispered as we descended the stairs. I pulled out the business card, running my thumb over my father's handwritten note. 20 years of pain and confusion crystallized into a single moment of clarity. "Yes," I said. "I think it's time to meet your grandfather." Behind us, I could hear Patricia frantically rummaging through the bedroom, probably searching for the letter. Let her look. The truth was already out, and no amount of social damage control could put my mother's lies back together. As we walked to the car, Tommy looked up at me. "Mommy, I think Grandma was scared." "Scared of what, sweetheart?" "Of not being perfect. That's what she told me when she gave me the letter. She said sometimes grown-ups do bad things because they're scared of not being perfect." Out of the mouths of babes, my 8-year-old had summed up Margaret Wilson's entire existence in one simple observation. I started the car, watching my mother's perfect house recede in the rearview mirror. The weight of her lies lifted with every mile between us and that house of secrets. My phone buzzed with messages from relatives, probably demanding explanations for our abrupt departure. I ignored them all except one. A text to my boss requesting a week of emergency leave. "Seattle?" Tommy asked hopefully. "Seattle?" I confirmed. "We have 20 years of lost time to make up for." The Seattle skyline emerged through the airplane window as Tommy pressed his face against the glass. "Look, Mom, the Space Needle." My hands gripped the armrests, anxiety and anticipation mixing in my stomach. After 3 days of frantic arrangements, booking flights, finding a pet sitter for our cat, and ignoring dozens of missed calls from Aunt Patricia, we were finally here. The business card with my father's information felt like it was burning a hole in my purse. I called his office yesterday, half expecting the number to be disconnected or wrong. Instead, a receptionist had answered, "Anderson and Associates Law Firm." I need to speak with James Anderson," I'd stammered. "I'm his daughter." The long pause that followed told me my father had probably mentioned me to his staff. "Oh, Miss Diana? Please hold." Seconds later, his voice, older but still etchingly familiar, filled the line. "Diana, is it really you?" Now, 24 hours later, we were about to meet him at his home. He'd offered to pick us up from the airport. but I needed these extra minutes in the taxi to compose myself. "Will he like me?" Tommy asked, suddenly sounding unsure. I pulled him close. "Sweetheart, he's going to adore you. How could anyone not?" The taxi turned into an upscale neighborhood of craftsman-style homes. My father's house was a beautiful blue two-story with a wraparound porch. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw him standing there, exactly like the recent photos I found in Mother's box. 20 years had turned his dark hair gray, added lines around his eyes. But his smile, my smile, Tommy's smile, was exactly the same. "Diana," he breathed as we got out of the taxi. He took a step forward, then stopped, seemingly unsure if he was allowed to embrace me. I broke first, closing the distance between us. His arms wrapped around me, and suddenly I was 8 years old again, safe in my daddy's hug. The tears I couldn't cry at my mother's funeral finally came. "I'm so sorry," he whispered into my hair. "I should have fought harder. Should have found a way to tell you the truth." "She wouldn't have let you," I said, pulling back to wipe my eyes. "I found her confession letter. I know everything." A small cough reminded us we weren't alone. Tommy stood by the taxi, trying his best to be patient but practically vibrating with curiosity. "And this must be Tommy," my father said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've seen your pictures, young man, but they don't do justice to how much you look like your mother at that age." "You have pictures of me?" Tommy asked, surprised. Dad nodded. "Come inside, both of you. I have a lot to show you." The inside of his house was warm and lived in, the opposite of my mother's museum-like perfection. Photos covered the walls, many of me growing up, clipped from local newspapers or taken from social media, documenting the life he'd been forced to watch from afar. "My wife Carol is visiting her sister in Portland," he explained, leading us to the living room. "She wanted to give us this time alone, but she's excited to meet you both." "You were married?" I asked, then immediately felt foolish. Of course he had. It had been 20 years. 15 years ago, he smiled. "She has 2 children from her first marriage, and we had a daughter together, your sister Emma. She's away at college now." A sister. I had a sister. The reality of everything I'd lost hit me fresh. "I have an aunt." Tommy perked up. "You sure do, buddy, and 2 uncles. They're all looking forward to meeting you." Dad went to his study and returned with a large box. "I kept everything," he said softly. "Every article about your academic achievements, your college graduation announcement, a notice about Tommy's birth. Your mother wasn't the only one who saved things. But unlike Mother's box of intercepted messages, this one was filled with love and longing rather than manipulation and deceit." "Why did you ever just show up?" I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me. "Why didn't you force the truth out?" He sighed heavily. "Your mother made it very clear that if I tried, she would destroy not only my reputation but my entire life. She had manufactured evidence of financial misconduct that could have sent me to prison. By the time I rebuilt my life here and had the resources to fight her legally, you were an adult. I was afraid forcing the truth would only hurt you more. But you kept trying to reach me. Every year on your birthday and at Christmas. Every major milestone. I never stopped hoping that someday you'd be ready to hear the truth." Tommy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Is that why Grandma cried when she gave Mom the letter? Because she was sorry?" Dad looked thoughtful. "Your grandmother was a complicated woman, Tommy. Sometimes people do terrible things because they're scared of losing what they have. It doesn't make it right, but maybe at the end she wanted to try to make it a little bit better." I thought about the timing of Mother's confession, using Tommy as her messenger. She made sure I couldn't confront her about it. Typical mom, controlling the narrative until the very end. But she can't control it anymore. Dad said gently, "What happens next is up to us." Looking around at the warm home my father had built, the family photos, the evidence of 20 years of love kept alive through newspaper clippings and distant hopes, I felt something settle in my heart. "What happens next," I said, taking Tommy's hand, "is we make up for lost time. All of us." Tommy beamed, Dad's eyes filled with tears. "And somewhere, I hoped my mother's restless spirit could finally find peace, knowing that her last act had been to return what she'd stolen so long ago. The truth, and with it, the chance for healing."